Jack had always been the kind of man who lived inside numbers, blueprints, and the sound of machines humming to life. A young Korean engineer working in Atlanta. He was brilliant but quiet, carrying himself with a calm discipline that came from years of solitude. Farah, on the other hand, was light itself. Born to an Egyptian father and an African-American mother, she had inherited her father's sharp wit and her mother's unshakable warmth. She carried herself like a melody, her coiled hair dancing in the wind, her laughter always spilling into the air, filling every silence. They met on an ordinary day. Jack's car had broken down outside a bookstore, and Farah, who was stepping out with an armful of novels, noticed his struggle. "Need some help?" she asked with a smile that disarmed him instantly. Jack, embarrassed but grateful, nodded. What was meant to be a small moment turned into a conversation, and what was meant to be a brief encounter bloomed into something neither had planned for. They became inseparable. Jack would take Farah on long walks by the river, explaining the way bridges were built and how steel carried more than just weight, it carried trust. She, in turn, opened his world to poetry, cooking, and the stories of her ancestors from Cairo to Harlem. He loved her stubborn strength, the way she never let him retreat into silence for too long. She loved his gentle steadiness, the way he made her feel safe in a world that often felt fragile. When he finally whispered, "Farah, will you marry me?" It was under a canopy of stars, his voice trembling like a boy's. She said yes before he could finish, throwing her arms around him, sealing their lives together. Their marriage was small but rich with love. They filled their little apartment with books, plants, and the smell of spices Farah's mother taught Jack to cook with. In that space, time didn't matter. The world outside could be chaotic, but inside, they had created a universe of their own. But love, no matter how strong, cannot shield against fate. Jack's engineering projects began to demand more from him. Longer hours, riskier assignments. He never told Farah everything, only that he had to be careful, that the sites were not always safe. At night, while she slept beside him, Jack would sometimes lie awake, staring at the ceiling, fear gnawing at his heart. It wasn't fear of danger, it was fear of leaving her behind. One night, he sat at his desk and began writing. His hand trembled as he poured his soul onto the paper. He didn't know if he would ever need the letter, but he needed her to have his words if his voice ever fell silent. He folded it carefully and slipped it into the pocket of his work jacket, carrying it with him like a silent promise. The morning began like any other. Farah kissed him goodbye at the door, her coiled hair brushing against his cheek. "Come home safe, Jack," she whispered. He smiled and promised he would. But by evening, the world collapsed. A call came, one she would replay in her mind for years. There had been an accident at the site. Jack had not made it out alive. Farah's knees gave way, her scream filling the walls of their once peaceful home. Grief became her shadow, following her into every room. Days bled into nights, nights into days. She wandered the apartment as if searching for him in every corner, in the coffee cup he left by the sink, in the sweater draped across their couch. It was days later when she found it. His work jacket hung by the door, untouched since the morning he left. Something crinkled inside the pocket. Her trembling fingers pulled out the folded sheet. Her heart stilled. His handwriting. She unfolded it slowly, as though afraid the paper itself might shatter. "My dearest Farah, if you are reading this, it means I could not keep my promise to grow old with you. I wish I could have held you one more time, whispered one more I love you into your hair. But please know this, you were my everything. The brightest part of my days, the reason I worked hard, the reason I dreamed of tomorrow. You are stronger than you believe, and I know you will carry both of us forward. Every sunrise you see, let it remind you that my love rises with you. Every time the wind brushes your cheek, let it remind you of my kiss. And when you laugh again, and you will, know that it is my heart still beating inside yours. Don't say goodbye to me, Farah. Say see you again. Forever yours, Jack." Tears fell onto the page, blurring the ink, but she didn't stop reading. Each word wrapped around her like an embrace from beyond the veil. For the first time since his death, She cried not just from pain, but from love. He had found a way to reach her, to leave her with his heartbeat even as his own had stopped. She pressed the letter to her chest, closed her eyes, and whispered into the silence of their home. See you again, my love. The days after finding Jack's letter were not easier, but they were different. Grief was still there, raw and heavy, but now it had a companion. His words. She carried the letter everywhere, folded in her purse or pressed against her heart when she slept. Farah began speaking to him at night. Today I cooked your favorite stew, Jack. I burned the first batch. You would have laughed at me. Her voice trembled, but in the quiet, she felt him listening. Her parents visited often, surrounding her with food and prayers. Her mother told her, "Baby, love never dies. It just changes shape." Her father, with tears in his own eyes, said, "Jack is part of our family forever. You carry him inside you now." Months passed, and though the grief never vanished, Farah began to live again. She started volunteering at a community center in Atlanta, helping young children with science and math, something Jack always loved. She would tell them stories about a brilliant engineer who believed that every structure was built on trust. One evening, after a class, she walked by the riverbank where she and Jack once took their long walks. The wind brushed against her cheek, and she smiled faintly, remembering his words from the letter. Every time the wind brushes your cheek, let it remind you of my kiss. For the first time, she laughed softly to herself instead of crying. It was as if Jack was there, walking beside her in silence, proud of her strength. Years later, Farah's life had grown. She had become a teacher full-time, known for inspiring her students with both knowledge and kindness. She wore a silver locket around her neck with Jack's photo inside, close to her heart always. It was at a community event that she met Daniel, another volunteer, quiet, kind, and patient. He never tried to replace Jack. Instead, he listened to her stories, respected the space she kept for her late husband, and admired the love she still carried. Farah struggled with guilt at first. Could she love again without betraying Jack? But late one night, sitting by the window with Jack's letter in her hands, she read his words again. "Don't say goodbye to me, Farah. Say, see you again." She realized then, Jack hadn't asked her to stop living. He had asked her to keep moving forward, to carry him with her but not to chain herself to sorrow. Farah and Daniel's bond grew slowly, gently, like the steady warmth of spring after a long winter. When Daniel proposed years later, Farah went to Jack's grave first. She placed fresh lilies by his stone and whispered, "I will always love you, but I think I'm ready to let my heart hold more love, too. Thank you for giving me the strength." On her wedding day with Daniel, she carried Jack's letter folded inside her bouquet. It was her way of walking into the future with both loves, one watching from beyond, one standing beside her. Farah grew old surrounded by family, her children and grandchildren knowing the story of the Korean engineer who had loved her so fiercely. Jack's letter, though worn and fragile with time, remained her most treasured possession. On her final day, she lay with the letter on her chest, her breath slowing as the afternoon light filled the room. She whispered one last time, "See you again, my love." And perhaps, somewhere beyond time and space, Jack was waiting, smiling with that quiet, steady warmth that had once changed her life forever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the story, please leave a comment, also like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and click on the notification icon so that you will be notified when the new video is uploaded.